Mall of America. For more than 30 years, it has been a retail leader and an international destination, and it remains the largest mall in the U.S. Not to mention, it welcomes millions of guests from around the world. It's huge, but it's also so much more. In this podcast, you're going to hear the real stories of how it started and why it continues to thrive. You'll hear about challenges we faced along the way and what you can learn from them. We will feature guests and experts from all walks of life and business, and along the way, you'll laugh, learn, and maybe even change the way you look at things. So if you're a fan of the mall, a brand new visitor, an entrepreneur, or a dreamer, prepare to dive deep into so much more. This podcast is presented by the Bloomington Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Welcome to So Much More, a Mall of America podcast. I am Jill Renslow, your host for today. I'm the Chief Business Development and Marketing Officer here at Mall of America, joined by my co-host, Chris Grap, who's a VP of Experiential here at Mall of America, and we have a podcast for you. Super excited about the topic today. Our guest today is part of the team on a special project that we're working on here at Mall of America. We're super excited to open soon this fall, American Monsters. And so be prepared to be surprised, intrigued, and entertained as we talk to Chung, who is the creative director for American Monsters. And American Monsters Onionhead's Revenge is perfect for this podcast because it is so much more than your traditional haunt for Halloween. So let's jump right in. So welcome, Sean, to the podcast.
Hey, Chris.
We want to learn about what American Monsters is all about and what you're bringing to Mall of America this fall. So why don't you paint a picture for our listeners and viewers of what they can expect here in September and October?
Absolutely. Our catchphrase is a new breed of haunted house, because what we want to do is elevate the experience. I mean, when we first started talking about it, the contrast we would talk about is like there's mom and pop haunted houses that pop up in your smaller cities and things like that. And then there's the Universal and Disney haunted houses where you've got big IPs, huge production value, and the tickets are just so expensive to get in. And the pitch was always that we were something in between, but the truth is what we're really doing with it, I think, is trying to do something different than even Universal and Disney. Because for them, I think what they're doing is they're relying on the IP, and by doing so, you get a lot of haunted houses that are like, go to this IP, then go to this IP, then go to this IP, and they're very disconnected. What we're trying to do is create this bigger universe of folklore that everyone can kind of connect to. Onionhead is not this mainstream character yet. He's going to be. But once we start building him out, we want you to be able to discover the story of Onionhead by going to the haunt. Yes, we're going to do movies and things like that in the future, but the haunt should be where you discover more about the character, not just rehash your favorite moments from the movie. That's what we're really trying to do.
So, Sean, you mentioned Onionhead. So
Yes.
The attraction is called Onionhead's Revenge. Back up a little bit and tell us about the inspiration for this specific storyline. So this is going to be a haunt at Mall of America. It's for all ages, but geared a little bit more towards the adult audience, correct? Because we also are going to have beverages that adults will enjoy, which we love to add. But talk a little bit. Chris is doing the thumbs up. We love it. What is the inspiration? How did you create this storyline?
So Onionhead comes from Slidell, Louisiana. And the only way you would have heard of him is if you're from Slidell, Louisiana. And it just so happens that the two owners of our company, Charlotte and Greg, were both in Slidell, Louisiana when they were kids. And that's pretty much the only reason Onionhead even came up on our radar. So when he did come up on our radar, and Charlotte was one day just telling me about this story of Onionhead, that she, this used to be a local legend, the boogeyman of her graveyard, I said, wow, that sounds like that could be something more. That sounds like the beginning of something really interesting. And if you're not a local, you're not going to know it. And that's the kind of story we want to pull out and expand on. So.
Well, I think it's interesting too to approach this with American Monsters is the umbrella under which all these ideas will hang. And to go into local legend and lore can be a bit tricky.
Definitely.
Because certain communities can be very passionate about something and other communities can be more tangential. But you have to extrapolate in a way what you want that legend to be for a mass audience.
Yes.
How do you do that and bring it to Minnesota?
I think that, Chris, you've hit the nail on the head, and it's also one of the things that makes American Monsters and Onionhead's Revenge special, which is, again, going to not being tied to the IP. Instead, I love the idea that an American Monsters experience has an air of mystery, because that's what folk legends are all about. They're told vocally. They're not written down. There's no exact Wikipedia article that tells you exactly what happened. It's kind of about, Chris knows the story of Onionhead, but he's pretty sure that Onionhead has a chainsaw attached to their hand. Jill maybe heard that Onionhead has an axe attached to his hand, and we're not sure which one is real, but there's something to do with the fact that he's got a wood cutting device attached to his hand, right? No matter which variation you get some kind of wood chopping device. And that's what we're trying to do with it, which is, like you said, we're not stepping on toes because we're open to you interpreting our story. We're letting you become part of the story by putting your local legend into our local legend, and that's what the monster is about.
Well, Sean and Chris, I can pretty much guarantee Jill does not have her version of this story, because for everybody out there, I do not like to be scared, and I'm not quite sure how these guys are going to get me into this attraction, but I definitely want to check it out with the lights on first, and then we'll go from there. But I wanted to jump in. Chris, we've done a lot of Halloween activations at Mall of America for years. We really focus in on Nickelodeon Universe, really having something for the whole family. We've been doing Booniverse for years. You brought this idea forward, and bringing, it was Mizuker Entertainment was the start of the conversation that brought us to American Monsters. But talk a little bit about why. Why are we now stepping into this space for Halloween?
It's one of those things where all those gears came together and clicked. As you said, we've been looking for what I'll just call an elevated haunted attraction for a long time. But it takes the right kind of partner to understand the opportunity that's here as well. And not just at Mall of America, but within the market. Halloween is a season that has more flexibility than what we refer to as the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's locked into a time period. But the Halloween creep is moving further and further out to the point where in end of July, some theme parks have Halloween decorations out already. So that's part one. And then the reputation of Mizuker Entertainment in the themed entertainment space with Haunted Hotel, that's like a themed entertainment supergroup. And when they have an idea that they're excited about, and we can establish that trust between each other, that type of experience here is something that hasn't been in any market before, but certainly hasn't been in this market, which tends to be very accepting of an elevated haunt. So I think those are the pieces that fell into place. And then seeing some of the illustrations and hearing the stories, and truly, there's a lot of passion behind this project, where at the beginning we're looking at the deck and we're talking about the possibilities, but when you hear the passion of the people behind it, who Haunted Hotel has been established for 30 years, 31 years, and they're excited about it. Mizuker Entertainment is excited about it. You have something special. So you took a little bit of a left turn in creative direction, from theme parks and parades and nighttime spectaculars. Did you always have a passion for this type of storytelling and it's just lent itself in, or?
I have always had a passion for supernatural creatures and environments. I think that Halloween and the horror space is one of the most beautiful storytelling realms for that genre. So that worked out. But I do want to jump back to what Jill was saying about how do we get Jill in there and the partnership with Mall of America.
Oh, this should be good. This should be good.
Because
that's what the thumbs up about the drinks was before.
Exactly. Yeah. So if
I'll sit at the bar and wait for you guys.
If we approach this like a traditional haunt, and we took the entire space and we just filled it with maze, and more animatronic and more scary stuff, I feel like it would not be an elevated experience. I don't think that making an experience bigger elevates it. I think making it deeper and richer elevates it, and that's a lot of the philosophy that went into what we did with the lobby, right? The lobby is completely free to access, and it is connected to our bar. So that means that for the first time, if you're, a mom dropping off her kid who is so stoked to go to the haunt, you're not dropping them off in some weird backwoods park where most of the year you probably wouldn't even want to be too close to this park, and now you're dropping off your kid and saying, goodbye, or maybe I'm going to wait in the car for an hour, don't know when you're going to be out. We've created an environment where you can drop off your kid and you can still have a drink and you can still enjoy that experience, and you're fully immersed throughout that whole thing. You're not just at a bar nearby. You're experiencing that with your kid, and that's going to create a bond that we think is special. There's just this connection and immersion where you're not just a bystander just because you don't want to do the horror stuff. You can be part of our horror, part of our world, without being scared out of your, what can I say? What words can I use? Without being scared.
Out of your mind. We'll say mind.
So I think that's really special about what you guys have, built with us. This is a unique space. This is not a creepy backwoods park. It is not just, a mile of unused land that we happen to build up a big set on. It is a special place, the Mall of America, and it is a special location that's allowed us to expand our haunt, so it is a place where you can enjoy whether or not you want to be scared. You can still be part of that experience with the people in your life who are going to go through.
And we appreciate you guys believing in us here in Minnesota and Mall of America. We are truly a destination for themed attractions,
Absolutely.
So we're super excited to host. Knowing that there's obviously challenges just being in our building and complementing what we already have here, because to your point, there's a scare factor, but we're used to screaming in this building because we have roller coasters, we have other attractions, we love the thrills, but this is a different level of thrill. Talk to us about maybe some of the key challenges that you have faced because of the unique venue that we are in. Granted, you noted that we're not outside, we are inside. It's Minnesota. We never know what the weather is going to be like year round.
Yeah.
September and October can be warm, it can be cold, you just never know. So we do have that consistency of the weather element, but the other challenges of the complementary uses, and talk a little bit about where you are in the mall and how you're going to activate.
Absolutely. So we are on the second floor, below Crayola and above LL Bean, and one of the main challenges that we're describing is that floor and that alcove we're in, when we first stepped in, it still very much felt like the rest of the mall, as it was meant to, because the third floor is more of an entertainment district. You have your Bubba Gumps and your Margaritavilles and stuff, and it feels that entertainment district feel. We had the the white walls and the white tile, very pristine, and I wanted to transform that area without fighting with it. Does that make sense? I didn't want to just put up something random that made you feel like, oh, this doesn't belong here. So what we did is we started playing with these black and white tones, as you can see with the shirts and things like that.
Yes, we are sporting some apparel from the upcoming attractions. So those that are viewing this
is step
check
one
it out.
to getting into the haunt, Jill.
It is.
This
Okay,
step
I'm
one.
wearing the clothes.
Yes.
It's good. Sorry to interrupt. Go
No,
ahead.
absolutely.
So excited about my new apparel.
But we have taken that entire corridor, and as of this morning, it has now been painted black. There's this massive 70-foot vinyl that leads you into the space with a picture of one of our creatures on it and the American Monsters logo, and we're about to paint the words "Fear is here," which is our catchphrase, right? Our other catchphrase, and have these big arrows pointing to it. But on top of that, we're even going to dress the columns in this kind of black marble look. So instead of fighting the tile, it's it's just inverted. It's the mall but it's the darker side of it. And that transformation is so important to us because when you're walking up to our venue, we don't want you to feel like you're just walking up to another store in the mall. We want you to feel like you're entering a space, a zone in the mall that you've been transported to.
Well, I think most of the successful themed entertainment attractions do create that moment of transition.
Exactly.
Where it's either giving you that permission to play or setting the tone for what those things are. So you have to do that. And I think you've done it in a very clever way. Also with the lobby being open. So for those people that maybe are on the fence, they can get a taste of it and understand what's there. But I think that was done in a really clever way. So
Yeah, and you can absolutely, if you're just at the mall, doing your shopping or whatever, once we're open, you're free to just walk in the lobby and take a look. Where you don't have to have a ticket to go, and you don't even have to buy a drink. If you want to just come in and see what we're doing, the lobby's going to be open so you can see it from the outside.
So it is a ticketed attraction, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So talk about timing, various tickets. What can people expect?
Sure.
Do they have to book in advance? Can they walk up and enter the attraction? What are the expectations for consumers?
Sure. So there are 3 levels of ticket. It is the general timed admission, the fast pass, and the monster pass. It is very highly recommended that you book in advance because time slots start to fill out quickly, and all of our tickets are required to be booked within a certain time. So the general timed admission does that for you. You can, of course, get there and look at it and think, this is cool, and book it on your phone. There's no problem with that. I would recommend booking in advance, especially if you want to go with all your friends and things like that. So with the general timed admission, there is going to be a queue to get into the haunt. That's just part of the condensed, crowds. When you have everyone coming in one season, you're going to have a queue to get into the experience. I will say, not to spoil anything, but I am trying my best to make that queue experience a little bit more elevated, a little bit more interesting, in addition to, obviously, you have the bar where you can wait with your friends and things like that. So if you want to buy the Fast Pass, that allows you to just jump ahead in the queue as you would, a la Universal or Disney. It's pretty easy to understand. What makes us really special, though, and I think Jill was pushing me towards it, and I enjoy that, is the Monster Pass. So the Monster Pass is a VIP experience that we could only ever really pull off in this kind of environment where we have this much control over all of the sets, over the lobby and the rain, the weather, and all of that. And what it does is that it gives you access to secret rooms within the haunt. It gives you access to free drinks within secret bars within the haunt, and it also tells you more of the story that you would not otherwise get if you just went through the general experience. And again, that goes back to what we were saying about how there's the folk legend, there's different levels to it, different people have different interpretations. That's what it is. If you go in with general timed admission, you're going to get one layer, excuse the pun, of the Onionhead story. If you go in with the Monster Pass and you fully dive in and you explore all the secret rooms and all the gizmos and gadgets, what you're going to leave with is a much different and deeper understanding of not just who Onionhead is, our hero character, but also these characters around him. These new characters that never existed in Slidell, Louisiana, his mom, Charlie, Dr. Thibodeau, these people that are part of the universe that make Onionhead who he is. You're going to learn more about them than anyone else if you get the Monster Pass.
So delivering this experience is extremely important to get the right talent. And Chris, I know that you helped the team kind of diving into this market and trying to figure out who were the right people to go after. You guys call them scare actors,
yes,
from what I've been learning in this new world. Talk about that recruitment process in a world that staffing's a challenge across the board in various industries, but this is a very specific layer of talent because they need to deliver a memorable and frightful experience. So if both of you can touch on that based on what's in this marketplace and how you approach the opportunity to fill this space with the right folks.
I guess I would just say that's what gave me some confidence about this too, because we want to be a good partner. But fortunately, I know a lot of people that work in this world and have worked in this industry, not to this caliber of haunt, in my opinion, but were well capable of doing it. So knowing that inherently we had some key talent on site was only going to make it better and easier for you, and I think really help with that word of mouth marketing. Yep. Because if you get a couple of these people on board, they become, that linchpin or lightning rod for other people going, okay, this is legitimate, legitimizing you to an audience that you want here anyway. Yes. So that just, for me, it was just lucky that our Venn diagram was a perfect circle on this one that lined up, but I'll let you speak to the rest.
I think one of the most interesting things is that because it's seasonal, there are very few year-round characters. It's not on your resumes year-round. So I think you would be surprised to find who is and isn't a character, right? They're not your usual suspects that are walking around that, they're not wearing all black all day. They don't have a bunch of piercings and tattoos. Not every character is, a rebel. A lot of times it's these people who come in and they say, like, it's really cathartic for me because it's a chance to step outside of who I am in my normal everyday life. And that's why they do it. They do it because they love it, and the rush and the thrill they get from being able to become this character lets them transform themselves. So they may be an accountant the rest of the year. There are plenty of orthodontists and lawyers who are more than happy to show up and scare people for the season. And that's kind of a really fun thing. And then you start looking at people in the community differently, and you think, hey, I wonder if this person. And so I think that's the most interesting thing about staffing it, is that you're not going around looking for these year-round characters or professional characters. You're looking for normal, everyday people who, like Chris said, have the passion. And then that passion comes out during Halloween, and they have a chance to, share their passion.
There might be some surprise guests in those characters over the time.
Can't wait. I cannot wait. Yeah.
So one of the things that's been very intriguing with this attraction is truly the storytelling that you have created around this. And we've learned this over the years here at Mall of America and our other attractions or other seasonal activations. Chris has been, truly the energy behind all of this for Mall of America and the creative process. Both of you talk about just how you create that compelling narrative that helps support the storytelling to really not only bring people in that first time, but that allowing the story to change over time so you get that repeat visitor, which is really important for us, especially if it's seasonal. You want to be able to keep it fresh. So Sean, why don't you start talking about storytelling?
I think about this a lot when it comes to storytelling in a haunt versus in another theatrical space or whatever. And for me, what is important is contrast. You can only be so scared. You can only be scared so many times in a row before you start to desensitize to it. So for me, it's incredibly important that the storytelling, which in our world is the series of sets and rooms that you move through, has an ebb and flow and changes. So it's not just constant jump scares, not just things always, creeping around the corner, not just always that loud banging noise. Like, we have some jump scares. We have some very loud banging noises and some very, startling effects. But there's also these rooms that just make you feel a little bit uncomfortable or uneasy, and you don't know why, but in fact it's this strange sound design that's using this note that you don't really hear, and it's kind of dissonant. Then there are these other rooms where you kind of feel safe, but because you're in a haunted house, you know that safety is a fallacy. And that to me is the interesting part of storytelling in a haunt, is how do you get people to lower their guard and feel like they're not about to be scared, because that's how you get them. The moment when they think they're safe is when you can scare them the most.
Well, I think in that instance too, in a haunt, a lot of times it's that as a frequent, patron of haunts, it's the anticipation and what you don't see are oftentimes far more frightening than what you eventually do, and setting the stage for that. And your audience is coming to you for that. They're coming along on that journey. They've already agreed to it. They've bought in. So then it's fun to be able to play with those tropes a little bit differently and create those unexpected moments in a situation where they are expecting those things. So that's a fun approach. Where for us, a lot of times we don't have that same time with the guest to create that. So sometimes it's really simple storytelling. Like, we want you to feel good in the space. We want you to have a smile. We'll work backwards a little bit from what it is. But when you have that duration of time and you know that guest expectation, to be able to orchestrate those moments, I can't wait. I just want to work there to see everybody go through, and just like when we go down to the slime chair and we know what's coming for people and they have no idea. It's those moments that are so rewarding. It's a little heart payment. You have no idea who I am or what I do, but you just engaged with a thing that, had our fingerprints on, and you did what you're supposed to do. Thank you for playing along.
I'm just going to camp out in some of those secret places where you can watch other people scream and be
bartender. You can be a bartender.
That sounds perfect. That sounds perfect. So that's going to do it for us today for our episode of So Much More. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of So Much More. If you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you find your favorites, including Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. And you can also watch a video cast on YouTube. Go to podcast.mallofamerica.com to leave a review, ask a question, or give us an idea for the show. Until next time, thanks for listening. So Much More is presented by the Bloomington Convention and Visitors Bureau, the official destination marketing organization for the city of Bloomington, Minnesota. Before your next trip to Mall of America, visit bloomingtonmn.org for answers to all your travel questions, deals and packages for hotel stays, and so much more.